Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Red Brown drops the ball. He drops the ball. Drives that drive. Way back. It could be. And it
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Week 8 coverage of quarantine, being stuck in the home, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to talk about on a baseball podcast. We really don't have jack shit to talk about except a couple rumors and some unsubstantiated talk of baseball picking back up in July. There being 3 divisions. They're playing in Arizona. No, wait. They're playing in Arizona and in Florida. You know what? It's going to sound crazy because you guys know what a big baseball fan I am. I have actually not been starving for baseball. Of course, the nature of our show would sure as hell help if we actually had baseball to talk about. And we're not going to sit here and talk about the KBO tonight and the fact that ESPN is broadcasting those games. I don't think that's very interesting at all. I don't think my co-host, my only one co-host tonight, will probably agree with me. I'm not the least bit interested in talking about the Korean baseball playing without no fans. If anything, it's an interesting case study for baseball to be taking a look at. If they do decide to come back anytime over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I think they're obviously watching what they're doing in Korea to gauge what might happen if there's an outbreak on any team, or if a player ends up getting it. What do they do with schedules? What do they do with teams? So we can get into that a little bit tonight, but we'll probably get into a bunch of nonsense because right now I'm just, it's not that I'm in a bad mood. I'm not in a good mood. I'm in a every day is the exact fucking same mood. So Pete, the one thing we'll be spared tonight, and I'm kind of thankful for it, although we love him, we'd do anything for him. He's a brother to ours, but we don't have to listen to that goddamn sump pump tonight. And I'm a little bit relieved over that.
I think that was all an excuse, right? He told us that he was working late, but that's not it. He couldn't find an alternate recording location.
Because it's still raining in Illinois, and it has been.
No, it hasn't. It's been dry the last couple of days.
Okay, well, thanks for debunking what my story I was going into. I didn't care if it was true or not. I had a narrative, and I was gonna spin it.
Tell yourself that all you want. Go right ahead.
Well, when it's not raining in Illinois, there's people bitching about the governor and just the state of the state in general. Pete, I don't know why you're still there, other than obviously you have a little guy there that you've got to be there for. If it wasn't for him, I honestly believe if it weren't, if that situation didn't exist like it is, I honestly believe you'd be down here with me, living in my attic.
I would have left here 5 years ago.
You know, at the time that we moved out here, I didn't want to. I didn't, because I had a situation very similar to yours, right? I didn't want to, but we were in the middle of a recession, and I was going to have to move regardless. I was going to have to move away from Central Illinois regardless. There's no way around it. And so my wife and I both had an employment opportunity with the company that we were with, and they happened to be moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, which honestly I didn't know jack shit about. It took one winter. I'm like, hell no, I'm never going back. So
I told you this, right? One of my first offers out of grad school, the 2 offers I was weighing, one was out in Oregon, the other one was down in Pembroke, North Carolina. So I might have beaten
you chose wrong.
In another timeline. I might have beaten you down there. You would have been, when you found out you were getting moved there, you would have been like, yes, I'll be there. Go. Let's go now.
And we'll start a podcast a few years later. Right. Well, that's not really how it's going. I hope you're recording, by the way.
I am.
Okay, because I forgot first couple minutes. That's cool. We'll just combine efforts on this one. Yeah. So, what I wanted to get into a little bit was a what if scenario. And look, Trevor Bauer pissed all over everybody's Cheerios when rumors were flying around earlier in the week about, baseball has a plan, right? There's something happening and it's going to get back. And then he tweeted out, nope, haven't heard a damn thing. Check my email, check text, nothing. Yep. So he kind of like, he doused that fire, and it hasn't completely gone away because look, I mean, if the people behind the scenes at baseball are going to start making a plan to get back, they're not going to convene with every single player to get every single vote. This is not a House of Representatives effort. Not everybody's going to be there to weigh in on the plan. Like, players might not know right away. It might be people behind the scenes, officials from Major League Baseball, front offices are going to be coordinating this before they ever start bringing it to the players. Now, the players, ultimately, the union's going to have to approve whatever plan that they want to put in place to get back. So I don't completely think he doused it, but it did kind of squelch that talk earlier in the week. But look, let's just play a hypothetical here. There was a proposed 3-team division. So the question I want to talk about tonight, at least to get us started, is given this new 3-division scenario in baseball, you had an assumption going into the year about how the National League Central, as it traditionally sits, how your Cubs might have had a chance to come out on top of that division. I had an assumption on where the Cardinals might place themselves in that division. But now, given this new Central with basically 5 new teams, how does that play into it? Now, typically, the AL Central is it fair to say that it's one of the weaker ones in the AL, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, they've had a couple teams pop in every now and then. The Royals had their run. Before that, you have to go back to the White Sox. The Indians have had a couple good teams. The Tigers have had a few good runs. But for the most part, what we see in the World Series and deep into the playoffs is traditionally, it's really not anybody from the AL Central, not on average. So,
except in 2016, and we know what happened there.
Well, we do. We know what happened we know what happened in 2006 as well, when the Tigers were supposed to take down the Cardinals in 3 games. Some smart ass reporter wrote.
Generally, you're right. The AL Central, because they always have, it seems like, one team that's really good, and you don't typically see them fighting it out the way that you see in the AL East.
Yeah.
And so they're not really battle hardened, and so they're able to pad their record on wins against softer teams. And so when they get to the playoffs, typically, it doesn't bear out.
That's right. I don't remember, and it's probably just for me not paying attention to it because we're so National League centric, like our focus is when we talk baseball in general, that I don't remember any down to the wire pennant races, like any heated things where a couple, 2 or 3 teams were neck and neck or within just a few games of each other in the AL Central. So it typically gets beat up and talk about it being one of the weaker divisions in baseball. And you know what? The National League Central falls victim to that quite often, right? Even though, if you look since 2000, the Cardinals have had, the lion's share of Central titles. You've had the Cubs that have had, 2003, you had 2007 and 8, and then you had the run that they had recently. The Cardinals have been there too, and every once in a while, the Brewers would accidentally finish ahead in the division, or the Reds mistake. Everybody was because the rest of the teams phoned it in. The Reds won, I think, in 2010. But for the most part, it's been like Cubs Cardinals, really, right? Even if you just look at the last decade. Yeah. But they still, when you're talking East Coast, West Coast people, they still think, well, National League Central is the weakest division. I don't know if I agree with that, and we'd have to look at it. But anyway, where I wanted to go was this new scenario where you have a new Central with 10 teams, you have a East with 10, West with 10. How would that have, if that played out? Okay, what's our view now on how this division shakes out? And I know this is not a lot of time. We had no agenda. In fact, somebody texted earlier today. I probably didn't even see it. My wife said, aren't you guys doing your show tonight? It's Thursday. And I'm like, fuck, it's Thursday? I mean, I don't even know what day it is anymore. And so I know we haven't had a great deal of time to think about this, but that new scenario, I don't know what the schedule would have balanced out to, but I think it would have been one of those where, what do you call it? You face the teams within your own division more so than you do. It's not a balanced schedule. It's an unbalanced schedule, is what it's called. So I don't know, Pete, any just like gut thoughts on, God, what would that have been like? Because Minnesota is pretty tough.
And the Braves, you would anticipate, would be tough.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, they're in that division too, which, geographically still makes no sense. But,
nope.
I mean, how does that form the new Central? I mean, and the playoff format, another thing, were they going to expand it or keep it the same? It's kind of strange when you start laying this out. Like, how would this play out?
I wonder if they didn't put the Braves in there strictly for a competitive balance thing. Because if you look at it,
East would have been loaded, right?
yeah, the East would have been really tough. The Central would have had maybe 4 teams, depending on 4, maybe 5, depending on if the White Sox live up to the hype this year, right? Because if you look at it, you're probably looking at the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Brewers, or the Reds. I don't think both of them are going to be competitive, and then the Twins. Um, and do you really want that? Do you want a division that's going to have 4 solid teams and then 6 kind of bottom feeders if you were to replace the Braves with the Pirates? So I wonder if they didn't do that strictly from a competitive balance standpoint. The East is already going to be brutal enough as it is, with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Nationals and the Rays, and who knows, maybe the Phillies will live up to some of the expectations. So the East should be tough. The West we know is going to be tough between the Dodgers, the Angels. Um, we don't even know if they're obviously moving forward with this, but still, the
No,
Dodgers,
we
the
don't.
Angels, the Astros, the Mariners. I mean, the West probably will be the toughest division if they were to move forward with that plan.
Well, let's just assume they are for tonight, at least for a few minutes here. And I just wanted to talk about the East. So, yeah, the East could potentially be a little bit of a dogfight, and I think the two teams that really stick out here. Honestly, Pete, I don't know if I agree with that, because I look at the East now and I see a 2-team race. To be honest with you, I see. I mean, of course, never rule out Tampa Bay; they're going to be hanging around, but I see the Nationals and the Yankees as being what has to be the 2 favorites out of the East. And I don't know that Tampa Bay has enough there to overtake them. I look at Toronto, and they've got a lot of young talent. They've got a great story in Toronto, right? I don't want to sidetrack us, but they have the major league kids on that club, which is it's pretty fun. I mean, it's pretty funny to think about it, but the Marlins aren't there. The Red Sox are a disaster right now. They still have talent. Don't get me wrong on that team, but you take a player out of there like Mookie Betts and David Price. It's not the same team that it was last year, and the Orioles are the Orioles, and sorry, L, they're not going to be there.
Nope.
The Mets, I don't know really what to think about the Mets, to be honest with you. I mean, they had a manager and for about 3 days, and they didn't. My son is messaging me, so obviously he
wants to be on the show.
He wants to be on the show.
I'll tell you, while you're taking care of that, Greg Yaki makes a good point. The short season too is going to make this incredibly hard to predict, because all a team has to do is get hot for a short period of time, and they could run away with the race. They could run away and hide. That's one of the great things about the length of the baseball season compared to any other athletic season, is that it's difficult for a team to run away from its division and then take it easy.
Yeah, well, it's a short season is definitely going to change things. And I don't, again, I want to stay focused on what the scenario thing, but I think it's a 2-team race in the East. Do you not agree? I mean, I think it's the Yankees Nationals. I
think as far as favorites, yeah, I think you're right. But we also know that it's not going to be, they're not going to do a 16 playoff. So you're probably going to see, I would imagine I don't even know what they would do with the playoffs. Do they take the top 2 teams out of each and treat them as division winners, and then wild cards for the remaining records? I mean, it'll be interesting. Or do they just take the 3 division winners, and then load it up with a bunch of wild cards strictly based on record? I don't know what they do.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know how, right now it's
because how do you reward a team that might finish 10 or 15 games back because the first place team in their division is just overloaded? I don't know how you do that, how you reward a team like that with a bye and treat them as a division winner.
Well, I don't know. And then there's the thing too, right? Where teams that sit idle for an extended period of time doesn't always work out for them well, right? Like teams that take down another opponent in 4 games in an NLCS. I think very often, and we've seen a lot of examples of it, that come out a little flat, right? Because the team they're facing was in a dogfight and likely was in a dogfight through August and September, and they've been playing like do or die baseball. It's always a risk, right? When you run away with the division and you take down your opponents quickly in the playoffs, when you get to that World Series, you get that team that's been fighting for their life and they have nothing to lose. And we've seen it quite a few times. But anyway,
Yeah, I honestly think that one of the best things that happened to the Cubs in 2016 was the fact that they had to face the Giants in the division series. The Giants were not going to go down easy, and they gave them a fight. And I think that tuned them up for what lay ahead of them with the Dodgers and the Indians.
well, and the Giants were I know it wasn't the same Giants that they were in 2014 and 2012, the even years when they decided to win, which is a strange case study. We should dig into that someday. He's bitching about the link doesn't work. I don't know if I should really, but I sent it to him again. I don't know if I should put any more effort into this or not, but
it's the same link every week.
It kind of is. There's a little bit different number to it. Like it adds one number to the link, whatever. But I guess the point is, it was a good, probably a good test for the Cubs going into that year in the playoffs to take down a team that was so seasoned. I mean, the Giants in the playoffs and the way they were winning it was pitching. I mean, they didn't bludgeon you to death with offense. What they did is they didn't really make a lot of mistakes. They played pretty clean baseball and they let you beat yourself. Basically, is what their formula was. And they had done to the Cardinals in I think it was 2012, and they did it again in 2014, where they had one player on fire, like Marco Scutaro. That's a name I'll never forget. Like he's not going to be remembered by anybody except Giants fans,
and Cardinals fans, bitter.
and Cardinals fans. But it's like there's a player they just couldn't pitch to anymore, and because he wouldn't miss anything, he wouldn't miss a mistake, he wouldn't miss the one strike that something they threw over the plate, but. What was more impressive about that team is they just didn't beat themselves. I mean, they took what was a young Cardinal team in 2012. Remember like Albert Pujols and everybody's, he's gone, and some of the veteran leadership's gone. A little bit of that swagger's gone, and I think they had a calmness about them, and they didn't make mistakes. They let you make a mistake, and then they capitalized on it, and that's. Good test for the Cubs, I think, in 2016 to face a team like that. I mean, if you can take a team like that down, you probably have all the confidence in the world to keep pushing on, even being down 3-1 against Cleveland, which I don't know why Cleveland couldn't pull out one fucking win. Please, that would have helped me a lot, but they didn't do it. But anyway, on to the Central. That's a different story. The Central now doesn't have a bunch of teams that are pushovers, right? I mean, you've got the up and coming Reds, which I do believe they're going to be a lot better. You have the Cubs, you have the Cardinals, you still have the Brewers, and somehow we always discount them that they're going to finish 4th or 5th, and they never do. You have the Indians that are still relevant, and you have the Twins that are way better than they were just a handful of years ago. So I think the Central becomes a lot more interesting. And as you mentioned earlier, the White Sox, can they live up to the hype? All the young talent we hear about that's coming up, is it going to come to fruition, or are they still a year or two away? So I think this proposed Central Division could be one of the more interesting divisions if this were to play out in this fashion. I don't know. What do you think? I
agree. And strictly from a Cubs fan standpoint, I think it's going to be unbelievably critical, given what is going to be a shortened season, that they get off to a fast start, that David Ross gets them motivated and they take off, because Theo and Jed have already indicated that if they don't perceive this team to be a World Series contender, that they're going to blow it up. And so I could very well see that happening, but the decision is going to have to come so quickly. Because the season is going to be short. So this is a team that's going to have to get out of the gate. And assuming that it's probably, if they were to move forward with this plan, you would play teams within your division an overwhelming amount.
Yeah, you would have to.
Who knows? You may never play any teams outside of your division. They may limit it just to your region. And so if that's the case, if there are 10 teams in your division and they're thinking, 90 games,
mm-hmm.
So you're going to play 10 games against each team within your division. You're going to have to get out fast. It's going to be tough.
I don't I totally agree with you, and I think it becomes an intriguing question. I think this comes without a doubt. This accelerates, if not immediately installs a DH.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I don't know how, if you play a majority of games within your new proposed division and five are NL, five are AL, which is exactly what it is. Um, how how are you going to operate the DH efficiently
Right.
in that year? They might try to do it, but what I think happens, Pete, is even if we return full strength, normal divisions, normal schedules in 2021, I think the DH is there. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in 2021. I don't think there's any way to avoid it. And I've said it on here before. I think the National League at this point, look, I prefer the National.
Get up off of that thing and stand to shoot, you head.
His timing is impeccable.
It is, isn't it? Braden, are you there with us? Okay, I don't hear you on the on the Bluetooth on the board yet. So give me 1 second, and I will connect you. Pete, I don't remember what I was saying because I'm easily distracted and thrown off, and I just can't hear him on here, and I think it's I'm not sure what I'm doing. Keep going. Say something. Bring up another subject.
What we were talking about, just getting out of the blocks fast, and you were talking about the DH being brought in, and I agree. I think the DH is an inevitability. Here's the tough thing, though: the CBA expires at the end of 2021, and so the DH is definitely something that is going to have to be negotiated. Now, the players want it, no doubt about it. The players absolutely want it. But there are going to have to be financial considerations that come up in that, because I think the owners are going to want a little bit more salary or certainty, knowing that half of the owners are going to be adding another high-priced player. And so I think that that's going to be a part of negotiations. I would love to see it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. But I don't think that this upcoming CBA negotiation is going to be easy. And wouldn't that just be a kick in the teeth that after getting a shortened season, and then what we feel or hope is a return to normalcy in 2021, that after that, the negotiations break down and we end up getting a shortened 2022 season or a canceled 2022 season. I don't think that anybody's going to be that short-sighted to throw away a season, but still.
No, that
didn't
can't
think
happen.
they were going to do it in 94 either.
And I got the best T-shirt I own still from that strike. Braden, I figured out the problem. Are you there? Why are you still coming through my phone speaker and not the goddamn roadcaster? Oh boy. I think Braden, try it again. Say something.
Hello.
Okay, we got it. All right. He FaceTimed me instead of calling me, and that's why he wasn't coming through on the thing. So, all right, B. We're talking a little bit about the proposed 3-division scenario in baseball. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be ignoring people on the chat. I just kind of got lost in my own little world here. Greg is talking, and so is CJ. The usual suspects are on here. But anyway, Pete, I think it's almost inevitable. Yeah, and I understand there's a CBA coming up, and I think the players union is going to agree almost unanimously that they want this because one, it effectively adds another job, right? For 15 more teams, and I don't see how they decline this. It happens in college, it happens in the minor leagues, it happens in high school, where this DH exists. So I don't think there's any way to stop it. Us that are used to our style of baseball that we love and the strategy behind it. You couple that with the new 3-batter minimum, which I know might have a minor impact. We don't know, but it's a thing and it's going to happen. And I'm at this point, I'm like, I'll pick another battle. I don't want to bitch about this one. I don't even want to spend any energy complaining that the DH is gone or DH is here. I just don't care anymore. So just let's just do it. And, give teams a year to adjust and figure out who's going to be their DH and who to sign and who to trade for. And, the positive thing about this, and I know some people won't agree, but it will extend a career or two, right? I mean, let's face it, Miguel Cabrera would not have been able to sign a monster extension like that if a DH wasn't in place in the American League. Albert Pujols, same exact story. They're probably not going to give him 10 years in that whopping amount if they didn't have a DH available for an aging player. So Nelson Cruz would be in that boat. So
Kyle Schwarber will be in that boat.
He should be in that boat right now. But
Anthony Rizzo will be in that boat.
Another great example. So I don't see it as a terrible thing. We have to adjust another change in baseball, and we've done it a billion times, right? And I think hopefully I didn't make this point too much last real baseball show we did, but look, when baseball has come back from a disruption like it is now, they've made changes, right? They made changes going into 95. We went from 4 divisions to 6 divisions after we came back from the strike. We got over it quick. And by the way, it also came with interleague play, routine, regular interleague play. And we got over it. I didn't like the interleague play at first, but look, I'm kind of used to it now. The one knock I have on interleague play is I truly believe that this natural rivalry thing is complete horseshit. If the AL East is going to be playing the AL Central, or I'm sorry, the NL Central, then all teams should be playing the NL Central. Not you got to have a Subway Series, or Chicago, you got to play the White Sox, or St. Louis, you got to play the Royals. I mean, this is stupid. Let's not do that part anymore, because that's false. Like, I know in Chicago it may be a little bit more heated with South Side and North Side.
It's heated from the South Side.
But it's not. I'm telling you right now, like, no St. Louis fans are going to be like, oh, we don't get to play the Royals every year. And the Royals fans are definitely like, no, we don't get to play the Cardinals every year. They don't want to.
Right.
And when you do it every year, it becomes more routine. You appreciate it much less. And it's just kind of stupid, man. If you're going to have interleague play and it's going to be divisional every year, then it's keep it that way. Get rid of this natural or regional rivalry thing, because it's fake. It's not even real. It's a fan thing. And
look at the way that basketball and hockey do it, right? You play everybody. Actually, I don't think they play everyone, but they play the other conference, but they only play 2 games against them.
Right.
So if you double that up for the length of the baseball season, then it's 4 games. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. You do a 2-2 series, and then you're done with it. But then you play everybody, and you've got the same schedule essentially.
Well, it's like, and the National League, it's unbalanced, right? You only play teams from other divisions in the National League, 6 times? You play 3 games in your place, 3 games in theirs, and that's about it.
And that's a function of the 162 game schedule.
Yeah, and I don't know. Just for me personally, I prefer the unbalanced schedule. I think you should be playing teams in your own division more often. I'm totally there. This interleague thing, I think they need to do away with the natural rivalry crap. I don't want to see the Mets and Yankees every year. Don't want to see the Cubs and White Sox. I don't want to have.
Unless they're in the same division.
Well, same division's a different story, which is what we're talking about. So now shift focus to the AL West. And Braden, we're talking about the new proposed 3-division thing. It's not confirmed. We don't know if it's going to happen. It might not happen at all. We're talking about how does that change the landscape. You probably, I'm going to go ahead and predict for you. You thought the Cardinals were going to finish on first in the National League Central, or they had a good chance to. But what happens when you now throw 5 American League teams in there? One, a really good one in the Minnesota Twins. How does that change your thoughts? Let's just stay right there, Braden, with the Central, this proposed thing. How do you think that changes the Cardinals' chances with the Cubs or whoever you thought was going to finish on top?
So the Central, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be St. Louis, Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Minnesota, right?
No, it's a lot more than that. It's 10 teams per division. So you have 10 in the West, 10 in the East, 10 in the Central. I'll run them down for you. The Atlanta Braves, for some inexplicable reason, except Pete's point he brought up earlier, maybe it's just from a competitive balance, but you have the Braves, Cubs, White Sox, Reds, Indians, Tigers, Royals, Brewers, Twins, and Cardinals. That's a big division now, and you've got some better players in there in terms of an improved Reds team. The Cubs are still the Cubs. The Braves are really good. The White Sox are supposed to be better, according to Fox News. The Indians are still relevant. The Tigers suck. Royals are rebuilding. Twins are really good. Cardinals are good. So that's a tougher scenario.
I would say I would have the Twins in first. I would have the Cardinals in second. I would have the Braves in third. The Indians in fourth.
Wow.
Cubs in fifth. Reds in sixth. Who's left?
Doesn't matter. Whoever's left doesn't matter at this point. But I don't think he's completely off. I think that the Twins are probably if you're a betting man, if you're a gambling man, you probably say the Twins might be one of the teams you would throw some money down on to finish on top in the Central, right?
Yeah, with that lineup, absolutely.
Yeah, pitching would be the only thing I would.
I can speak from experience. I'm in a online MLB The Show league, and I'm in two of them, and one of my teams is the Twins. And just playing with them in MLB, they are amazing. Like, they're disgusting. They have just a massive, insane amounts of power. I mean, their lineup is, it's scary. You got Byron Buxton, Jorge Polanco is a nice 7. Nelson Cruz has always been a huge power hitter.
Yep.
Max Kepler came up last year pretty big and was a big guy for them. Miguel Sano can swing the bat. They added Josh Donaldson to the lineup, who always
and I completely forgot about that as we were talking about the Twins. I actually forgot they've added Donaldson into the middle of this, and he's like a 4 or 5. I mean, imagine that. You pick up Josh Donaldson and he's batting 5th. I mean, how good is your lineup when that happens, or he's batting 2nd or whatever, right? I mean, yeah, that's a gauntlet of a lineup. It really is. The only thing I have to question about is their pitching. Is their starting pitching? Of course, bullpen.
They got Jose Barrios, Kenta Maeda, they have Homer Bailey, who is, Homer Bailey. I mean, take it for who he is.
Well, ask the Cardinals how afraid they are of Homer Bailey, and we'll just end it there.
I think they got 4 solid starters and a not very good upgradable 5th starter, but their bullpen's solid. I would say it's decent at best, but if you have decent pitching in a lineup like the Twins, I think they're for sure a World Series contender, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, actually, at the end of the day, I don't disagree with you. It sounds a lot like the 2004 Cardinals team, where they had a lineup starting with Tony Womack, which I still funny to remember that name. He played for St. Louis for 1 year and led off, played second base. You had Edgar Renteria, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland, Albert Pujols, Larry Walker. Who am I missing here?
Not to mention Mitch Garver's on the Twins too.
Well, now I'm talking about the Cardinals right now. Don't you? No, you hold on. You hold your thoughts. And they had Reggie Sanders out there in the outfield. I mean, the Cardinals had a bruiser of a lineup, and they had a pretty good pitching staff. But when you're headlined by Woody Williams, I don't know that. I guess they had Chris Carpenter at that point, but he wasn't the Chris Carpenter that we got to know right over the years. And so, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that club where they had pitching that was pretty good, but it wasn't like they didn't have an ace stopper. Like, if you're in a slump, this guy's coming up in his spot in the rotation. He's gonna shut this slump down. The Cardinals did not. You could argue the Cardinals did not have that year. They had a lineup that could bludgeon you to death. They didn't have that over the top pitching staff. But yeah, so all right, Braden, what was the other name you were throwing out there on the Twins, since you know all the ratings for MLB The Show and not really what they did last year?
Mitch Garver. He's an underrated name that you don't hear a lot. Top 5 catcher, in my opinion. He not that great defensively, but he can swing the bat. This Twins team, they can hit the ball. And granted, their stadium's home run friendly, but if you look at last year, I think they They set multiple home run records.
It's not home
last
run
year.
friendly if they extend baseball into December. I can tell you that right now.
Well, no. but
Canada
who
Air
knows
will
if they'll
Canada.
be playing in stadium?
If we're going to
They
build
got
a wall,
roof.
if we're going to do they?
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah, on
I didn't
Target
think
Field.
they did. I didn't think they did. Am I okay? How did I miss that detail?
Yeah, I'm pretty
missed
sure
that
Target
memo.
Field has a roof.
Brits don't have a roof.
No, I don't
do
think
they?
it does. No, I don't think it does.
They don't have a
Really?
No. In fact, if we're going to build a wall anywhere, Mr. Trump, it needs to be between us and Canada to keep all that cold shit up there. Like make it really high. Like it's unbelievable. It's going to keep all the cold weather out. I mean, it just should be there. And no, if they extend baseball late in November, you're really going to hit a home run at Target Field without shattering your
Right.
bat. Good luck. Pete missed a deep. Braden.
I must have seen I must have had an early concept drawing of it in my head.
No,
Early on they were thinking about it.
What you remember was the Metrodome caving in because of snow. You thought that was a retractable roof. Like, oh, that's how they retract it. They just pile a bunch of snow on top of it. Yeah, so they're not going to extend baseball into December. That would be completely stupid. It would disrupt the 2021 season. I can't see that happening under any circumstance.
What they did say is that if they did, they've talked about having the World Series out in LA because the Dodgers were supposed to have the All-Star game this year.
Yeah.
And so that's how they would do it if they were to extend it in December.
Yeah, I could see that. But boy, having a off-site, not a home field World Series is not. Look, I can put up with the DH coming to the National League because we all know what's happening. Having a World Series in a neutral site, yeah. I don't know how I feel about that right now.
Yeah, how do you take that away from a team and from a community like that?
Yeah, because you know what it's like, right? I mean, what if the Cubs would have won on their home field? Like, it was still good. It was still good, right? It was still a good thing. If they would have won that World Series on their home field, how much more sweeter would that have been, right? And so when you put it in a neutral site, like I know football does this, right? And it's whatever. Football is the only major sport that does it. Am I correct? I mean, I don't know about MLS, but you know, hockey doesn't do that. St. Louis has a team now, though. I have no idea what they're called. They had the XFL
football team. Oh, no, they don't.
No, they don't. Nobody has an XFL team anymore. But which is kind of sad, to be honest. But anyway, yeah. So I don't even know if we need to get in the National League West about how that would shape up, but I can run through the teams real quick. Would it be an interesting thing or not?
Rough.
You got the Diamondbacks, Rockies, Astros, Bang Bang, Angels, Dodgers, A's, Padres, Giants, Mariners, Rangers. I got to be honest. When I run down the list of these team names, I'm finding back a yawn. I don't know about you, but I am.
Well, the Dodgers, I think, will run away with it, but I don't think that they're going to limit it to only one team per division. You got to think they're going to do an 8 or a 12 team playoff to continue interest.
And didn't we hear that like it could expand to up to? I could be wrong, man. I could be pulling this number completely out of my ass. But didn't we hear like it could be a 15 team playoff? I mean, I don't know what you do about the idle team.
Well, you think about all the revenue that you're going to lose this year. You want to do everything you can to try and claw some of it back. So
yeah, sure.
And people are willing to pay a premium for playoff games. So that's an even better way to claw some of that back, some of that lost revenue.
And by the way, this White Claw here, I haven't had it yet. This is a tangerine. This is horse piss. This tastes like I just sucked battery acid out of my car battery. I'll never drink that again.
Good for you. Odd time.
Giving you guys a heads up.
Have you ever had the coconut LaCroix?
No.
I've
been too embarrassed. I've been too embarrassed to take it up to the checkout. No, I haven't.
The ex bought it many, many years ago, and it tastes like you're drinking suntan lotion because it smells like coconut. It's horrible.
It sounds awful. I'm not a coconut person. Look, the only coconut I like, seriously, honest to God, is coconut shrimp. That's about it. You go beyond. Yeah, I'm just not a coconut like a Mounds or an Almond Joy. Yeah, probably my least favorite candy.
What about the coconut bra? Are you in for that?
No,
Interesting.
I'm not going to say why. My son's on the phone.
You can.
Braden, are you a coconut fan?
I do like coconut.
You're not my son. All right, so he's
Where's Elliott? I haven't heard Elliott at all.
Elliott. Well, I have him in the lobby. I'm not letting him in. No, he was working late tonight and he couldn't join us, so he let us know before. But the silver lining to that is there's no sump pump or a computer fan in the background.
$10 is on his couch.
He probably
TV
is.
show right now.
He probably is. He's watching Westworld or something. He totally bullshitted us, Pete. I don't believe him, and I agree with Braden. I think Elliott wasn't working tonight. He's watching Westworld. He's watching the Bulls documentary on ESPN, or he's just whatever. But
here's what he's doing. He's cuddled up with the wife.
Were
They're
you
watching
watching
The Big Sick.
Which I haven't watched yet. I've heard it's good, but you know what? We only have so many hours in a day to watch stuff. I was going to get into what we're watching here in a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, this new division shakeup, if it were to happen, which who knows what the hell who knows what form baseball is going to come back in at this point. You said before we hit record tonight, before we went live, hey, baseball's coming back in July, Pete. What scenario, rumor, what thing are you pointing at that leads you to believe that that's actually going to be a thing?
Well, I've seen a couple of reports. Trevor Plouffe initially leaked something out, and then I think it was Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal over the last 2 days have broke and then confirmed that there's a proposal is going to be sent to the players, I think by the weekend or maybe by Monday. Looks like July 4th is their target date. So then you just work it back and you're probably looking at somewhere in mid-May. What they've talked about is that teams would have spring training at their home stadiums. And then the season would start with no fans in the stands. And who knows how long it would be before fans would finally be in the stands. But that looks like July 4th, thereabouts, is what they're shooting for. With spring training part 2 essentially starting in a couple of weeks.
I just reminded me, because I looked at my own face here in the feed and the camera, and I got to tell you that Braden, you'll enjoy this. So if you noticed the other night, Pete, I had a completely shaven face. I just got sick of the beard. It was, I let it grow out. It got out of control. So I had my Phillips electric clipper, just took it all off. Previously in year or two ahead of this, I remember I had shaven my face at least one time completely. I remember the first sound out of my wife's mouth was "ew," which I had, because normally I have a little bit of scruff or have a short. My daughter, when I went to put her to bed that night before we got on Monday, she usually her little hand just kind of touches my face, and she does this kind of thing with my eyebrows in between the across the bridge of the nose, and she said, I don't want to touch your ugly face. Because she's not used to ever seeing me without some sort of length of a beard, and so it didn't look like her dad to her. So she said, I don't want to touch your ugly face.
So now we know what Sarah means when she says "ooh."
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I remember when Braden was probably the same age, I told him I was going to grow a beard, and Braden was always like, "No, you're not going to grow a beard." Now it's like all my kids are like, "Please don't ever shave your beard off ever again, because we don't want to see your natural look."
Oh my God. I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
I don't know, Braden, do you remember that?
I remember what?
Did you fall asleep?
What?
Never mind. Did you hear what I just said?
I remember you.
Oh,
Did I
God.
hear?
Oh.
Or do I remember?
Oh, crap.
Oh.
You're a Greg
Dude,
Cody.
I
You're a show
remember
killer. You just killed the show.
No, do I remember saying don't grow a beard? No, I don't.
You used to.
Put it on the poll.
I said I was going to grow a beard, and you always said, no, don't. You look old. And I have my daughter saying, your face is ugly without it, basically. and along with my wife and probably your two brothers, too. But anyway, yeah, so that was.
Nothing is my problem.
Huh?
I don't know what he just said. It's
Nothing is my problem.
Nothing is my problem. Oh, yes. Yes, that's Emily's famous quote. All right, guys. So that's enough baseball talk for tonight. I'm not interested anymore until we start getting solid news when they're going to come back. But this is going to sound insane, and it might sound blasphemous, but I'm not desperate and pining for it. What I am desperate for is for Hollywood to put out some more interesting shit on video and iTunes. It's pretty disappointing, I think. A lot of the releases. I'm not going to watch Bloodshot. One has Vin Diesel, and he's going to be grunting and trying to say clever lines, which you know are not originated from his own brain. And so I don't want to watch any of it. The only fascinating things I've seen, honestly, have come from animated stuff. And we've talked about it on Monday, right? Like some of the deepest, well thought out and entertaining things have come from stuff that's done. Like there's no more of it. And so it's a little I've had a depressing 3 or 4 nights, Pete, where the Clone Wars is wrapped up. Braden, we didn't get to talk to you about this because you fell asleep before on Monday. And truly one of the best stories that I remember in recent years that has been wrapped up has been the Clone Wars story. It's been the story of the Clone Wars, not through the eyes of the main characters, which we all thought when the big movie debuted in 2008. When I took you to the theater and we bought a Captain Rex figure right after, we thought it was going to be through the eyes of the main characters. At the end of the series, it's not. It's through the character that we all didn't like after that movie, and that was through Ahsoka. We've grown to love her, and she's probably one of my top 5 favorite Star Wars characters as far as development, as what you know about them. And it's over. It's not. It's done. Her story may not be done. It may pop up somewhere else, Pete. But like,
you got to think, right? We're going to get the adventures of Ahsoka and Rex because there's a lot of story to be told between what we saw on Monday and when Rex shows up. Dirt fishing in Rebels.
Right.
There's a lot of story there.
And remember, Pete, no, it's not confirmed by Lucasfilm, but it was confirmed by Filoni. That old guy at the right side of the bunker in Return of the Jedi that had the white beard, he said that was Rex. Yep. If he was truly there, if that's a real thing, then there's more room for his development. There's more room for his thing.
And somewhere in there, he has to find Gregor and Wolf.
That's true.
Because he ends up with the 2 of them. Where do they fall? There's a lot of story for Filoni to still tell if he wants to.
Yeah, there is. And of course, Ahsoka showed up in Rebels, and what we hear rumors are that she's going to show up in The Mandalorian season 2, which will be, seeing her in the flesh in real life, not animated, will be an interesting thing. And it might be a shock to some that are used to Ashley Eckstein's name, or sorry, not name, but voice, that sweet girl voice, and seeing her in an animated fashion versus seeing her in real life is going to be interesting. But I think that if anybody can navigate that carefully, it's got to be the creator of her character, and that's Dave Filoni. So I think that it's in pretty safe hands, right? And like Ahsoka debuted, people might not like it when they see it, but they'll accept it, I think, over time. And so I'm not too concerned about it. But I'm curious to see her fate and how they're going to use her and how she serves this Mandalorian story with the and everything. That's that'll be an interesting thing. But yeah, there is room there, and I agree with you. So anyway, as far as anything else Hollywood has to offer right now, I tried to go back and watch the first season of True Detectives on HBO. I don't know if you've ever watched that. It's really good. Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey as detectives.
I've heard great things about it. I've just never gotten into it.
Yeah, it's time, right? And we only have so much time to dedicate to binge watch anything, and so that's a good one.
Have you gotten to the Alexandra Daddario scene yet?
Well, I've already watched the whole. We watched the whole first season of this back when we lived in our interim house. When our last new house was being built, we were staying in a temporary it was like some kind of executive park or something where it was furnished. We stayed there and we watched the whole thing, and it was fantastic. I tried to go back and we rewatch it because the seasons after that have never held up to the first. And so I thought,
season 3 was pretty good. That season 2 was a little bit of a disappointment.
Season 2 was a disappointment. It was Vince Vaughn and I can't remember the other character. Oh, Colin Farrell. Almost said Will Ferrell. That probably would have been better.
A completely different show.
It would have been.
Those two together, oh my God.
And Braden has probably not watched either of these, so he's already tuned out. Are you even still there?
I am.
We've been on for almost a half an hour.
But I wanted to get my piece in on the whole Clone Wars thing. So, big reason why I was asleep Monday night is because I didn't end up falling asleep till about 1:30 because I stayed up till 1 in the morning to watch Clone Wars. And, you know, I thought episode 11, aside from 12's ending, was a bigger reveal or a bigger episode, but I didn't feel like 12 needed to be that because my expectations from this last season, 3 of the 4 got filled in episode 11. And the ending of episode 12 was just, it was everything that it needed to be. It was silent, dark, and sad. You just sat there and you just watched with your mouth wide open, just silent shock, and like, oh my God, like that's just how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you guys felt watching it, but watching Vader pick up that lightsaber, turn it on, and put it in with his other lightsaber, and seeing that clone trooper helmet in the snow was just, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where they were at this final scene, but for me, could it have been on Hoth? Maybe that was something that I ended up thinking about. But in other Star Wars news, I don't know if you guys have heard this rumor or not, but there's a rumor that Hayden Christensen could be cast as Anakin Skywalker for the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series on Disney Plus.
That would be interesting.
Except he wouldn't be Anakin at that point. He'd be Darth Vader.
Yes, technicalities, Pete. But yes.
It does make a difference.
It does. Yes, because Anakin's dead at that point. Except for when Luke brings him back.
And he's 7 feet tall, too. That's going to be
because of longer metal legs, which
yes.
I almost thought about cutting my own legs off if they could replace them with 7-foot metal legs. That'd be awesome. I'd be in the NBA at age 45. Anyway, no, Braden, we couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's a lot of what we said on Monday is that I think the silence in these last 2 episodes, the anticipation of when Order 66 was actually going to be executed, when Ahsoka was flying back to that ship with all the clone troopers on it. Thousands of them, right? You saw them lining the hangar. They were lined at that shuttle, just like Vader and the Emperor were getting off of the Death Star too. Tons of them, right? How could you avoid them? You didn't know at that point if they'd already known about the order being executed or if it was just seconds away. And it was kind of edge of your seat stuff. And for an animated show, an animated show has never done that to me before, ever. But because we've seen Revenge of the Sith, because we knew what was going to happen, gosh, guys, if this had been a sequential thing, like if we wouldn't have seen this stuff like in the order we seen it and we just saw it sequential, it wouldn't have been as riveting. But we knew it was going to happen, and so it was kind of edge of your seat, even though it was an animated series. And a lot of people won't understand this that haven't kind of gone through the evolution that older folks have, or that people like Braden who saw it originally in 2008 and kind of probably started processing the prequel and original trilogies a little bit later in his life. But so many people got it, and so many people that didn't understand like how this lined up, how this stacked up. I don't know. It's really a brilliant way. I mean, I don't know that they could have ended this animated series in any more satisfying fashion. I think it really is great. And Braden, I think unlike how you felt, I didn't expect to see Vader in the Clone Wars at all. Vader in armor, in black armor. And we saw that, and I'm like, wow, shit. I didn't know they would go there with that. But I think that was a brilliant way to end the final scene. I mean, what do you think, Pete?
No, I agree. Because technically it's not the Clone Wars, but wrapping up the story that way is the absolute right way to end it. Because it reinforces the fact that there is still Anakin there and that he's still mourning the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That he lost the three most important people in his life. He lost his mother, he lost his wife, and he lost his Padawan. And I think he knows when he picks up that lightsaber that she's not dead. And you see it in that moment. And I think that was part of Filoni's, I said it on Monday, the use of the mat, I think, is a bit of a nod to Ralph McQuarrie, but I also think that it was a conscious choice on Filoni's part to force you to look at only one thing, and that's Vader. There's no other movement in the shot, and so you can only look at Vader. And it reads that there's mourning there, knowing that Anakin's gone, or
Well,
sorry, that Ahsoka's gone.
Well, I think for one last time, he at what he left behind, right?
Yeah.
That he made a choice and he left these loyal troopers behind. He left his Padawan behind. That this is what was by his side, and he walked away from all of it. Now he's got to face it again and look at it, stare at it, and so it's it really adds to the tragedy of the character. For me, if you watch the whole thing holistically, it adds to the tragedy of, you live with your decisions. And, I know that if you believe everything about Vader, his anger fueled him. But man, when you look at all this stuff together, it's like how much his anger was at the end of the day, like when you get to Empire Strikes Back and everything else, his anger, I'm sure it was towards the Emperor that fueled him, but I'm sure most a lion's share of his anger that fueled him was against himself.
Sure.
For the choices he had made. It had to be.
But when you look at it, right, the decisions that he made, the choices he made weren't fueled by anger. They were fueled by fear.
Right.
And that leads into exactly what Yoda says, that fear is the easy path to the dark side.
Well, fear leads to anger leads to hate leads to the dark side. Right. And that's the total package right there. And, when he's looking at all these decisions he's made, he may have thought at the time he was making them for the right reasons and realized, no, I'm making them out of fear is driving my decisions, and I hate myself for it. That hate gives me power, lets me press on. So, sorry, Braden, we don't mean to cut you. I wanted to get your thoughts on that too. Do you have any perspective?
Well, I thought just seeing Vader in that scene and just seeing like Anakin's side and kind of look at that lightsaber and look down on his path. I mean, there's multiple moments where you look at his moment in Rebels where Ahsoka slashes his mask, and Anakin comes out for those few seconds, and then Vader takes over. And if you think about it, Vader's whole mission is to destroy the identity of Anakin Skywalker. But those moments, like with Luke and Ahsoka, and even Obi-Wan, and especially Padme at some point, Anakin comes out at those moments. But Anakin's always had an anger towards Sidious, where Sidious promised that he would save his wife, and that's basically the biggest reason, aside from the Jedi Council, that Vader did what he did, that he's always had those anger moments, or those moments where Anakin peeks out, and Luke was the one to end up bringing him to the light side, and Anakin was reborn. But it's Darth Vader is such an amazing character when you think of who he is and things that he looks back. Seeing him turn on that blue lightsaber and hold the blue Jedi lightsaber that he gave his Padawan, his friend, as you watch episode 11 where Ahsoka's back, he just wanted to talk to her, and because he misses already. There's so much to talk about, and Ahsoka's just all down to business for the Siege of Mandalore, but it really shows how much Anakin cared and how much he loved Ahsoka. And I feel like his character depth is truly amazing, especially I feel like it was advanced really in these last few episodes of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's a really good take.
Yeah.
B, it really is. And you think about it, Pete. Earlier you said Hayden Christensen is going to be cast, and not as Anakin because Anakin's dead. He's Vader. But I think Braden's comments and what we've seen from how the story's unfolded, it's like Anakin's never really 100% been dead, right? I mean, Yoda thought it at one point, because remember he told Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, like, your Padawan gone, he is. There's only Vader, and Yoda believed that. I'm sure Obi-Wan believed that at one point, but Luke never did. Luke knew that there was some good left in him. Ahsoka, I believe, even that moment in Rebels, we saw the end of season 2. She still saw Anakin, and he spoke to her as Anakin briefly before Vader took over. So Anakin's never truly dead. There's still something in there holding on to what he's always seen. I think briefly at the end of Clone Wars, Pete, I think we saw the same thing. We saw a brief glimpse. Yes, it's behind the armor, it's behind the mask, but I think we saw ever so briefly Anakin looking at the things that he was used to, that he loved, that he was used to, and I think we saw a glimpse of it there. We couldn't see his face, we couldn't see his eyes, couldn't tell the emotion, but I think with the mannerism, with the action, with the moment, you got to help to think. You can't help but think. But there was a brief glimpse of Anakin through those lenses, ever so slightly.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's why Filoni made that choice.
If you want to go into
yeah, you just got taken over. By the way, you just got you got bulldozed.
I mean, it's a clear choice that Filoni made, that you can see Anakin's face through the lenses. Would have been very easy to have not had that shot, or to have had it so that the light didn't shine through. That's a conscious choice. And I think it's important to remember that he's early on his journey as Darth Vader, right? So Anakin is going to push through more there, and that the further along we get, there's less and less of Anakin still remaining.
Right. And
that it's only Luke who can reach through there and find that last bit of good in him to bring him back to the light side.
That's right. That's right.
If you go into deep detail, if you at the end of Revenge of the Sith, before that Vader mask fully gets sealed on, if you look closely and you slow it down enough, you can see Anakin's lips just say something right before that mask goes on. If you go deep into the books and the comics, right when Vader was coming at Luke in Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan was telling Luke of the Force Ghost, run. I mean, Obi-Wan believed, like, he's fully Vader. He cannot be turned. Run, Luke, for your life. And Luke said, no, there's still some of my father who was a Jedi still in. And so Yoda, Obi-Wan, everybody besides Luke thought, because with great reason, from what they saw with Order 66 and the younglings and everything with that Vader fully consumed him. And Vader tried to reassure that in Return of the Jedi. There is no conflict. He tried to show that, but even his fighting style against Luke in Return of the Jedi, he was wanting his son to beat him. He was giving in slowly. And so it's always been back and forth, and that's what's so interesting about Vader is Anakin's never truly been gone. There's always been that little voice inside his head.
I find it hard to argue that. I think that observation and with your knowledge of the comics and other material that is revealed what's going on behind the mask, what's going on in the brain, which you don't get from a cinematic thing, right? You get from movie novelizations or comic books that are covering the same things. I think what Braden is referencing, and so I agree with you, Braden. I think that by the time we get to post Return of the Jedi, which is interesting about the Marvel comics at this point, you can clearly start to see that Vader's having a struggle with holding on to the dark side. That there are cracks in the armor, much like Kylo Ren had with holding on to the dark, like not being able to completely shut himself off to the light. You see the same thing with Vader at that point, and it bleeds over to Return of the Jedi, which is why when they capture Luke on Endor, on that walker, Luke leaves with the troopers, and then you see Vader kind of pause at that moment on the walker on that bridge and look out and stare out into the distance. He's clearly struggling with how he's feeling and what he should do. And so that, to Braden's point, that bleeds over into the confrontation on the Death Star too. Best storytelling ever told, Star Wars in general.
A huge compliment for Dave Filoni on this is that this 4-story arc is as good a companion piece to Revenge of the Sith as Rogue One is to A New Hope. That this movie, and it is, we talked about it on Monday. Yeah. This is a movie. It got hacked up into 4 parts, but it's a movie. This movie makes Revenge of the Sith better.
Yeah. And how awesome of a Jedi was Ahsoka Tano. I mean, taking on all those troopers, surrounding her like 360 and saving one, not killing one, but escaping at the same time. She was pretty powerful, and she was trained by the best. And so basically
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I talked about it on Monday, but she took all the right lessons from the Jedi. You know, Qui-Gon Jinn would have loved her.
Yes.
Right.
Oh yeah.
She
absolutely.
took all those lessons. She was the one. I said it on Monday.
Dooku.
She was the one Jedi who recognized the humanity of the clones. For every other Jedi, they were disposable.
But you know what? Dooku, had he remained in the light, would have loved her too. You know, because she didn't fall into that. She did not fall into that Mace Windu line of thinking. Which, you know, when you get to the end of this, you look at some of these other Jedi. Like, yeah, they may have thought they were doing the right thing, but man, we can't be duped.
Right.
You know, go back to the Phantom Menace when the Sith could have not returned without us knowing. Like, seriously, I mean, like, stop yourself right there. You saw the arrogance all the way back with Episode 1.
And part of it, obviously, is that the dark side had grown so powerful that it was clouding their ability. But the fact that they were unable to recognize that, you know, that they weren't,
or listen to anybody from outside the cloud that would come in and warn them, they wouldn't do it.
Correct.
So, yeah.
It's interesting you bring up Dooku though, because if Dooku was alive at this point of Order 66 and Ahsoka having these thoughts of the Jedi thinking the Council, if you think of how Ahsoka thought of the Jedi as soldiers and no longer keepers of the peace, her thought process was very similar to Dooku. and his reason why he left the Jedi Council, it would have been very interesting if Dooku was alive at this point and approached Ahsoka, as Ahsoka was close to joining Maul to take on Sidious. It would have been interesting. I think Ahsoka would have had thoughts of joining Dooku in some sort of way to take on Sidious or to end this once and for all. Because if you think about it, their thought process of how they looked at the Jedi Council and how they thought of things was very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right, Braden. And another thing beyond Dooku is like Maul, just Maul himself. I mean, we know that, he kind of scurried off like a rat in this instance, but we know in Solo, he was head of a Crimson Dawn, like a major crime syndicate. And he had people deathly afraid of not delivering what they promised. Dryden Voss, one of them, right? Like deathly afraid he didn't deliver. And then we see Maul and Rebels ending up alone, desolate, acting like an old man with a cane on Malachor. Like, what the hell happened between there? That's another interesting thing. So there are great, Pete. We've talked about this before. It's like, gosh, why do we keep cramming stories into this space between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope? But damn, it really is interesting when they do it. I mean, they've done it a billion times now, and
if the right person tells the story,
if the right, and usually that path leads to Dave Filoni. I will say that Solo's not terrible. It's not one I want to go back and watch a lot, but it has that in there. Look, if it wouldn't have been for Solo, Dryden Voss's hollow image wouldn't have showed up in this episode of Clone Wars. And so like they're doing a great job at least tying those things together. So I appreciate that. And so it makes me want to know more about that crime syndicate post Maul Clone Wars. Like there's this space there now where he still amassed a lot of power. So what was that like? Like what happened? What's the story with Kira? What's the story with Kira post Solo when she had to go meet him? And there's still a ton there that can be explored, I feel.
Yep, I agree.
You also think of Clone Wars and the Black Saber. You think of the Mandalorian and the Black Saber, and how he mentioned the Mando with the Siege of Mandalore and all those things. And you think of Ahsoka being in the Mandalorian. There could be a tie between the Mando when he was a young kid, possibly knowing Ahsoka from the Siege of Mandalore, or things like that. Like in the Mandalorian, when if he's the one who brings Baby Yoda to Ahsoka, that Ahsoka has a tie to the Mando somehow, and the Black Saber from the Siege of Mandalore during the time.
No, Braden, that's a great point you brought up, and I was not thinking of the Black Saber tonight, but that was originated from the Clone Wars. I mean, that was kind of a story that was brought up there. It was touched on in Star Wars Rebels. I mean, touched on him is a major part, right? Where Sabine had come in possession of this, and it was from Kanan, and I think Ezra being on was it Dathomir, that whole episode there, and they brought it to Sabine. Sabine passed it on to Bo-Katan. And how does it get to Gideon? And so the common thread there is Dave Filoni. He's a great storyteller, and he can. What's masterful about Dave, I think, despite a person like Kathleen Kennedy getting involved, is like Dave's been able to carry something like that, just one thing, into not one, two, but three efforts, right? Just probably despite her knowledge or attention to detail, he's been able to carry that into three things. And I think that's a great thing. Who wasn't tickled to death? As soon as we saw that saber poke out of the TIE fighter, we knew what the hell it was. It was like, what's the dark saber? Like, whoever watched all this stuff knows what it is. And it's brilliant that it's here now. And that's Dave Filoni tying all those loose ends. And I again, Pete, we're going to sound like a broken record. Like, when are they going to turn the reins over to somebody who can actually tell a Star Wars story in continuity over not just animation? They can take it into live action and make it seem seamless. I mean, we all understood what it was. People that had paid attention to this shit knew what that was. We didn't need to have a backstory on it. We knew. And so that's, fans that are,
and if you were new to Star Wars and The Mandalorian was
it didn't matter.
the first thing, it didn't matter. It was still a compelling story.
But you might wanted to know, and now you go back and figure it out.
Right. I'm looking forward to 10 or 15 years from now when Kathleen Kennedy is no longer Lucasfilm, when the whole story group has been cleared out, and whoever is in charge decides to give us a treat, and they release the original Gareth Edwards cut of Rogue One, and they release the Lord and Miller cut of Solo. I want to see both of those.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Disney doing that. And yeah, we effed that up royally, but I agree with you. Like, I would love to see Gareth Edwards' real ending to Rogue One, because we saw Jen running across the beach with the plants.
Right.
Like, did she actually get off the planet? How many of those people survived? So yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing. But all right, so we're past the hour. We're like an hour and 20 minutes into that. I didn't think we'd go more than 30 minutes tonight. We had no content whatsoever. All right, Pete, start leading us out. Braden, before I hang up on you, any last thoughts on just Rebels, or not Rebels, but Clone Wars ending, and the future of Star Wars, and et cetera, et cetera?
Well,
keep it brief. I'm giving you 20 seconds.
I hope that The Mandalorian season 2 is able to start on time with reshoots of Ahsoka and obviously coronavirus. I hope Kenobi is a good big hit. I hope those are the good future of Star Wars. But as far as the live action big screen film, I would love to see a period of the Old Republic. I would love to see Darth Revan on the big screen.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to set the stage for with the new set of books that they said are coming out. What is it? The High Republic period, I think.
Yeah, the High Republic. Yep.
So they may be setting the stage for that.
Yeah, I think that Revan will become canon at that point, and that would be pretty cool. I mean, so I don't know. It remains to be seen. I mean, they can take this in a million directions. I mean, part of me goes, yes, please tell us that Old Republic story, but part of me also goes, Pete, like, take us 100 years beyond where everything ended here, like where the heroes we knew about are legends and they're talked about briefly, maybe mentioned, or you see a statue in the background or something. But let's start moving forward, because we know where everything's going to go.
And that's why you can go back to the Old Republic. You can go far ahead, because you can separate yourself from those sagas. I mean, if you go back far enough,
sagas. Sagas. You gotta call them sagas.
Sorry. If you go back far enough, even Yoda is not going to be part of the story.
Right.
So
you could even do a new trilogy or a new saga beyond a new period or a new age in the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or post Empire about Luke.
That's what we just said.
So
when we're not live on Facebook, you can find us online at teamarivalspodcast.com. We're on Twitter at teamarivalspod, and we're on Instagram at teamarivalspodcast. You can contact us by email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com. On Twitter, you can find Elliott at TOR_Elliott, or you can find him above his sump pump. You can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
And Braden's out there somewhere. Just log into MLB The Show. You'll eventually run into
him. We'll get an opportunity. Where are you at, Braden, on Twitter? I know you're on Twitter. What's your...
I am on Twitter. I don't really post.
All right, never mind. Never mind, Pete.
But anyway, you can find me on the PlayStation, MLB The Show. If you look hard enough, you'll find me. If you wanna have a little match with me,
we give you like 5 seconds to give them your handle, where to find you, and that's all you get. Where can people find you on social media, Braden?
You can find me on PlayStation at yes22.
Okay, thank you. That's all we needed.
If you are watching us live, don't forget
I'm
you can
playing.
always catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Player.fm, SoundCloud, Radio Public, and Google Podcasts. If you do love this show, please leave us a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/TOR. Follow the simple instructions and don't forget to make it good. And finally, if you'd like some of your own Team of Rivals gear, go to teamofrivalspodcast.com and click on the store link. Ron, it's been magical, man. 2 shows in a week.
It really has been. We haven't done this for a while because we haven't had the motivation to do it. I mean, to be honest with you, it's been light on content, but glad we got to do this tonight. Braden, love you so much, buddy. I'm glad you got to call in. Although link wouldn't work, I don't quite believe that you knew how to use it, but we'll talk about that perhaps offline.
Be live, suck, get your stuff together.
That
Can't
we agree
argue with
on,
that.
buddy. Be Live sucks.
Here's the problem. If he goes on Be Live, he has to turn his camera. He has to put his shirt on. He can't leave,
Right,
he
to,
can't leave his
that's
phone
his
aimed
beef.
up at the
Let's be clear. My beef is different than his.
right.
His beef with Be Live is that he actually has to put clothes on and not let us stare at his ceilings, man. And that's why he doesn't like
Yeah,
it.
I'm good with this. Nobody knows. Nobody knows I don't have a shirt on.
Good, just calling it.
Nobody
That's-
knows you're looking at my ceiling fan.
Yeah, I know. And
Be free.
those of you who have tuned in tonight, we appreciate your participation. We're sorry we didn't. The comments are far off to the right on my screen, and I didn't get to see all of them. And I know that you guys were chatting on the stream tonight, so we appreciate you guys participating. We don't forget you, but we will be back same time, same place next week. And until then, we love you all so much. Bye bye.